I have joining me now via Skype from Lagos Island, a professional economist and business consultant, Dr. Adedipe. Dr. Adedipe, thank you very much for your time. He is also the chief consultant of Adedipe, that's Adedipe Associates Limited. Thank you very much, Dr. Adedipe, for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Tolu, for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm going to start, like I said in my intro, against the backdrop of the devastating economic challenges that we face at this time, thanks to COVID-19. Now, a lot of figures have come in, projections that the country is expected to contract by about 3.2%. In your thoughts, where do we really stand at the moment? Let's take a global picture now.
All right, thank you so very much. I will start from what happened to the Nigerian economy the first quarter of this year, and which I also observed that there are certain things there that we probably have not considered when people started banding projections all around. Projections really, I would say, firsthand, are simply opinion of a professional on certain variables based on assumptions. So if assumptions come to a ground of agreement, then we can also agree on projections. And that is why I differ from most of the figures being bandied around. And this is the way it goes. First and foremost, the Nigerian economy grew by 1.87%. Everybody knows that, of the GDP, first quarter of this year. But nobody is talking about how this played out among the various sectors that account for economic activities in Nigeria. In fact, more of the sectors of our economy in the first quarter actually grew compared to their performance the preceding quarter, as compared to those that actually shrunk. So in which case, there was a very bright prospect of the economy growing into the end of the first quarter and leading to the second quarter. Now, not only that, there's also the observation that the GDP, if we analyze the figure that we had, especially looking at the basic price measure of GDP, will result in an annualized figure of about 142.59 trillion naira, compared to the figure of 145.64 trillion for 2019. That means if we look at that contraction, that was just about like 2.09% if we compare those two figures. Now, going beyond that, we then ask ourselves, what actually happened in the second quarter? Because what we saw there will give us a good idea of how to position the first half of this year for Nigeria. Now, second quarter of this year, we went on lockdown. But by the end of April, early May, we began to reopen the economy. So we had more period of economic activities in the second quarter than very little economic activities in that very quarter. Now, equally, when we pair it, we then ask ourselves which sectors were most affected when we had the lockdown, and even after we reopened and economic activities began to pick up. And that will bring us now to dimensioning the economy into formal and informal sectors. In fact, what I see here going forward in terms of projections will be a revelation of what we actually measure in Nigeria. Whether we measure formal economic activities mostly, or we also measure informal activities. The reality was that as soon as we reopened the economy, informal activities began in earnest. Because now you are talking about those who account for about 48% of our GDP, who are those in the informal sector, that began to go about their business as usual. And that, of course, has been a challenge in terms of dealing with the health crisis itself, on the one hand. But the other side to it is that when we also aggregated the various stimulus programs across various sectors by the fiscal and monetary authorities, we came at a projected figure initially at about 4.8%, then we went to 5.3%. But then when we came to the reality of what actually happened, what has actually been put out, we found about 2.4% of our GDP. And that becomes worrisome in the sense that if you look around the globe, in terms of how governments responded to COVID-19's impact on their economies, everybody first of all starts from measuring stimulus vis-a-vis the GDP. And so the pattern generally is that where there will be an impact of stimulus to prevent the economy from sliding massively, it has to be anything between 5 and 10% of your GDP. We have done just about 2% as of today. But the follow-up question will be, where did we intervene? And maybe one should mention here also that at a time like this is not a time the government should worry itself about borrowing. What you do is to protect and ensure the economy remains sustainable. You don't worry about your debt at this point in time. And I will give an illustration of that. The UK government, for example, entered a situation that never happened since 1963. On June 19th, 2020, what the UK government had as sovereign debt was greater than the GDP of UK. And that was the first time such a thing will happen since 1963. But nobody's talking about that in UK. The concern is get the economy moving. So that brings us to which sectors in Nigeria we are most affected. Again, there's been a lot of conversation. Logistics sector. But if you look at our GDP figures, you find that when it comes to transportation, and of course, what everybody talks about, accommodation and food services, both of them account for just about 2% of our GDP. So when you therefore look at the impact on our economy, what should be of concern to our policymakers should be the 6 sectors that have dominated the value of economic activities produced in Nigeria in the last 20 years consistently. And there are 6 of them. Okay, agric is top of the range, which means if there's going to be intervention, we've seen that the government has done that in the right sense, because a lot of this went towards the agric sector. Okay, agric has dominated our economy before we rebase and even post rebasing the GDP. All right, so that is a step in the right direction. But the other areas where we can get a quick, not only turnaround of the economy, but also create a ratchet effect that can in fact create multipliers around the economy is real estate. Real estate, incidentally, is among the 6 major sectors of the economy. But the question is, what are we doing?
Indeed.
To ensure that we create an environment for that sector to grow strongly. It creates jobs very quickly, but also adds value in terms of the finance industry, but as well also connects to the real sector, because a lot of the inputs that are going to real estate is from the real sector. Okay. So yes, please.
Dr. Adedipe, let me come in here. Now, with all of the support from government across the world, and even Nigeria is not left out, it's going to be a 2-in-1 question. How do we assess the efforts made in Nigeria, our own country? How well have we fared? And what do you expect of this economic sustainability plan? Beautiful document. We've always had documents in this part of the world, but many talk about implementation. How does this come to you? Take us through it.
Thank you so very much for that dimension. That has been the major problem with Nigeria for decades. Beautiful plans, but when it comes to execution, we fall. Now, the way to go about it when it comes to execution is that the government at this point in time has to begin to address the issue of management of the economy as if it's a private sector entity. And that means we must begin to measure deliverables. What are the specifics? If you ask me, for example, I will use the template of China. I always make reference to China. And that is, if in that plan, we have a projection of how many kilometers of roads we want to deliver under the public works section of that plan. So the question is, how many kilometers and over what period of time? So we should begin now to measure that on an annual basis. So how many kilometers delivered by the end of 2020? That's what we should be talking about. And then we roll into 2021, how many kilometers? So the focus will be on what we deliver, not on just talking about we have a beautiful plan. We've had so many in the past. But until we begin to measure what we see as important in that plan, we may not get anywhere. That's the first plan. The second plan also is that those responsible for implementation, until they begin to be accountable for what they are responsible for, we also may not get value from the process. Which means if I'm a minister in charge of a particular sector, let's say power sector, so in which case I have the opportunity to retain my portfolio if only I deliver what is in that plan with respect to the power sector. If I don't deliver, then I'm out of that office. So we must therefore define key performance indicators for our ministers. and those in charge of important agencies of government that will superintend the execution of the plan. And I must also mention this. We often make the mistake that when government comes out with a plan like this, we think it is government that will implement. Government puts it out as a policy. The success of implementation of any economic plan, check it anywhere around the world, it lies with the private sector because it is their response that will determine whether your plan will be successful or not. So in which case, it has to be a partnership where government must see the private sector as those that will work with them to execute the plan and get it delivered. Yes, government has plans for roads and all manner of infrastructure items. Then at the same time, it is private entities that will deliver them. So in which case, how do you select those that will do that? Then we must come to terms with the reality that government cannot afford to deliver the infrastructure deficit that will save this economy. They must come to terms with that. And in which case, how best do we go about, if I like, let me call it outsourcing, which of course was under the concept of public-private partnership. We must face that reality. So the government cannot find sufficient funds to deliver this plan. And so they need the private sector. And that means we must come to terms where we actually incentivize the private sector to deliver. So it is not a time to start running after private sector people as if they are all, mercenaries or people who are just after making money. It's a time to sit down and also understand that there are certain things that government on its own cannot do. So the success of this plan, to me, is likely a matter of the collaboration between the public and private sector.
About this before we round off this segment of the show, the issue of devaluing the naira or trying to get a way to sustain the forex market is something that also been on the front burner. A lot of suggestions have been coming with regards to this. How do we maintain our currency at this very critical time?
Well, I thank you very much for that because I've been personally privileged to be a part of this conversation for close to 30 years. And until we come to terms with the reality that the value and strength of our currency is a reflection of the relative strength of our economy. And what that means then is that your economy domestic is playing against the external sector of that economy. So if you buy more from the rest of the world and you sell so little to them, perennially your currency will be depreciating, that is losing value. So if you want to maintain the value of the naira, where it starts from, and I must mention this, that the demand for foreign currencies is derived. That means people don't demand foreign currency for the sake of holding the currency, except of course for two important reasons. One, maybe as a hedge against inflation, where you run an inflation, where your economy is inflationary in nature. Alternatively, that people don't have confidence that the current exchange value of the currency will be sustained. That is only when they begin to speculate. So the only way to check that is for us to change our attitude generally, and that is in terms of production, we begin to produce what we consume. I remember clearly 30 years ago, I used 3 items to illustrate. I said Nigeria has no business importing toothpicks, safety matches, and walking sticks. Now, when I said that some 30 years ago, it was in understanding that the technology for this is basic. So what are those things that the technology is basic, that we can produce enough for ourselves? We must come to terms with that reality. So until we begin to produce what we consume, and also deliberately choose, like other countries have chosen, to consume what we produce, without the sentiment that, oh, it is better if it is imported. There is the mentality, the mindset, that anything imported to Nigeria is of higher quality, and that is not always correct. So until we get to that point where Nigerians take pride in consuming what is made in Nigeria, that might not change. So perennially, go and check the data. The data is available from 1970 till date on the exchange value of the Nigerian naira to major trading currencies. That has been the pattern. I describe it as a moving target. So until our production and consumption nexus changes and we look more inwards, that pattern may not change. You can remove the premium today. That is what people say now, where we used to call it, where we now call it harmonization. That's the language currently. It's not any different than what we've been saying the last 30 years, but we use different names for it. Okay, it's still the same Washington consensus as we knew it to be. Now, until you get away from Washington consensus, you will perennially be running after a market, a roadside market, which we call parallel market here. That value will continually dictate what to benchmark your official rate against. So until the underlying issue, that is production, changes, what business as Nigeria, for example, importing refined petroleum products? We shouldn't be doing that at this point in time. So if we are still doing that, there's something is wrong somewhere. So it then means that we don't also have the courage to address the fundamental issues. So when we get to that, we must be ready to face the reality that until we deliberately buy what is made in Nigeria, no matter the quality, in any case, if you don't buy more of it, where will the producers get more money to improve the technology they use? Because we always point to that, lower quality. But if you don't patronize them, where will they get the revenue to improve? So it is something that government must lead in terms of, we must in fact adopt a policy. I made this recommendation 3 years ago. Happily, the government adopted that 30% of our budget should be, reserved for things made in Nigeria. They adopted that. It came out in a presidential order. But I haven't seen what I actually said there 3 years ago. And that is make it a 10-year policy where we move from 30% to 80% by 2026, where we say 80% of federal government budget, for example, will be used to buy products and services produced and provided in Nigeria. So by the time we keep shipping money out to the rest of the world, we keep creating jobs out there. So the issue of job creation is also connected here.
Dr. Biodun Adedipe, I see that passion there when it comes to improving production in this part of the world and making our currency more valuable than it is at the moment. I think there's going to be a part 2 of this discussion. I must thank you so much for your time. It's the Chief Consultant, B. Adedipe Associates Limited, experienced economist and business consultant. Thank you for joining us on Business Nigeria today. It's really a pleasure having you on the show.